Hello world, welcome to the 183rd climate change emergency protest. It is June 10th, 2022, and next week will be June 17th for number 184 climate change emergency protest. And that'll be number 184, June 17th, 2022, and that will be in Gettysburg as well, hopefully. And I no longer do broadcasts down at the square because I feel I am no longer safe doing climate change protests. People don't recognize there's a problem. And there are groups of people that tend to be more physical and verbal, and it's kind of a waste of time at this point trying to convince others that we're in a dire situation. So here I am on the battlefield, and things could be much worse. I mean, look at this area other than the deadfalls. Now what you're looking at is one of two types of well, there are many types of death here on the battlefield as far as trees go, but this is one of those where the root of the tree totally pulled out, and it is a pretty large tree. It's unbelievable. I'll stand in front of it for a second so you get a perspective, if I can get my tripod set up the right way, and it doesn't seem to want to cooperate. Okay, so this is the size of it. I mean, the thing's pretty huge. Okay, so what it is a tree that was, Tanya and I counted the rings a couple weeks ago, and we estimated somewhere 164 years old, somewhere in there. We could lose count, and might be off a couple years, but essentially it was here at around the time of the Battle of Gettysburg. And it's unbelievable how huge this tree is. It's an oak tree, and what you're seeing is one of the two major types of tree death here on the battlefield, involving oaks and ash and everything like that. Either it's a root pull out like this, or it's insect invasion, or both. Whereas the insects get underneath the bark, such as the oak borer beetle, and then kill the tree from the bark area, and then the tree just slowly dies, and it snaps in two. So it looks like in this case this was a root pull out. So the question is whether this tree was a witness tree or not here during the battle. It was 164 years old. The battle was 159 years ago. So there's a good chance it was here during the battle. This is on the east side of Big Round Top, so there's really no action here. So the tree would have been largely untouched. But, whether it was here during the battle or not is superfluous, because you have a situation where the trees are just dying all over the place, whether they're 10 years old or 150 years old, and there's one on the other side that's probably over 200 years old, and I'll hopefully take you down to that area. And that was more of a cause of actions by the battlefield itself, the national park, and cutting down a massive amount of trees, creating a bog, and then the trees had survived for 150, 200 years unimpeded, and then you create a situation where you change the environment for looks so that people can see the battlefield and how it was, rather than realizing we're in a dire situation, and created a bog, and you have massive tree deaths on the other side as a result of it. So, like all of us, this tree would have loved to have, remained and be, been around for another 100 years. But like all of us, we'd like to be remembered and not, have a life that was a life lived in vain. Our bodies fail, and inevitably, the end comes. It was not time for this tree to die, and yet here it is. It died. For whatever reason. And here it lays. Its sisters and cousins, realize now that their time could be at hand, having witnessed this themselves. I believe that trees are interconnected, and, when one goes, they all kind of feel that loss. And you can see other trees that are leaning against each other and are getting ready to be on their way out too. But in the end, it all comes down to this. With this tree, if this tree was alive and a person, or people in general, harbor no ill will. Even if your demise is caused by others, who knows what caused this? Most likely it's insects and root rot and things like that. But why now? Be kind and try to understand that in spite of the actions, of others, you need to see how their thought processes are and how they see life. Be willing to let go when the race is lost. We're in a situation now with climate change that no action is being taken. And, at some point you have to realize that things are beyond your control. In spite of everything going on with climate change, and it does not look good for humanity and life in general, you still have to finish strongly across that finish line, regardless of how the end is coming. You know, whether it's to save humans or save some sort of life on Earth or just save amoebas, you have to keep trying, and you can't quit. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to commit suicide," or "I'm going to give up," or whatever else. You need to finish it and make sure you did everything you can. You know, realize that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, sometimes you lose in a race. You know, and this is the situation. Unless things change, that we're going to lose. So yes, this is a climate strain. This climate change struggle is mostly lost. You know, we can't do much about it if no one is going to get on board. The people that matter, such as politicians and the entertainers and the media and people who are strongly against climate change, say it's all a hoax. You know, or even the people that are lipstick liberals that say, "Oh yeah, it's a very big issue," and then aren't willing to do anything about it or even talk about it. I can't ever get a conversation going with anyone but my wife Tanya. So this is symptomatic of friends and family, people you don't know, anyone in general just doesn't want to talk about climate change, doesn't want to deal with it, want to keep doing their things, want to keep going on the way they are, and things need to change. Unless there's a mass intellectual understanding and desire to change, nothing's going to happen, and we're on the road to doom. Unless the mindset changes, then my desire to have a positive outcome will not happen. You know, it's not going to happen at all. I know it's not due to as long as I know it's not due to a lack of effort on my part, I'm okay with that. Sometimes things cannot be put back together again, despite all the efforts and all the king's men and all the king's horses. Things are going to fail, and you know, that's my main message. Sometimes you lose, and that's what's happening in this situation. You know, I've come to terms with it, where, you know, I've been doing these broadcasts for over, well, this is my 4th year of broadcasts, doing these type of broadcasts. I used to go to the square and do the broadcasts, but you know, sometimes you lose, and I have to face up to the fact that no matter how hard I tried, probably going to lose in this race. But I'm not going to give up and quit just yet. So, you know, you have to come to terms with that. And, you know, unless people are willing, and people listening to this broadcast are willing to tell 100 other people and do their own broadcasts and get on board. I have a lot of people saying they want to meet and, you know, get together and have a talk. That sounds nice, but there's no time for that. You got to actually start broadcasting and vent what's going on and let others know as much as possible. Preaching to the choir is great. I mean, this talk here, I'm probably talking to you guys and you all know what's going on, or you might not. You know, you might not realize that we're in a dire situation. And you know, next year, once the El Nino comes about, and what's the El Nino, Jim? You know, it's a venting off of heat from the oceans. And the clearing up of the atmosphere, as good as it sounds, and we need to do that, the particulates in the atmosphere, the pollution, is actually saving us. Even though it kills 10 million people a year, it's also screening out the sun. And the sun's going to be our enemy in the end. It's going to bake us off. So cleaning up the air it has to be done, but it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So El Nino's coming. We've been in La Nina for years, since 2017, I think. And things just aren't changing. I can't get the conversation going, as I said, and you all need to do your part if you can and talk to others. And I know many of you are. And keep the struggle going, and try when available to let people know that we're in a dire situation. And research. Go down my Facebook page here and you know, really check out the articles. I've been posting these things since 2013, so I'm on 9 years of posting articles, and you'll be astounded at what's happening in the world. Stop paying attention to your 3 mass media: CBS, NBC, ABC, and as well as Fox Television, which is poisonous for climate change, and actually get on board and realize what's happening. And if you don't want to believe me on that, just take a walk in the woods, look at things like this, look at these trees and what's happening to them, and they are screaming that we are dying, and it's falling upon deaf ears and a blind eye. And if you don't realize that what is happening, this is not natural. What's going on here? This is a process that humans have caused. And, you know, do your part to do your best to get out here and try. But sometimes, as I said, you lose. And that's part of life. You know, you do lose, and it doesn't matter with all the king's horses and all the king's men. Can't ever put this together again. You know, so do your best, try. But, you know, don't have such a stake in the outcome. Just have a stake in actually trying your best. And if the outcome fails, at least you did your part. I'll see you next week. Bye.